Pine Ridge was the kind of town where nothing happened without everyone knowing about it by sunrise. A single blinking traffic light, one diner that never closed, fields stretching farther than the eye could see. On most nights, the loudest sound after midnight was a truck passing on the old highway. That night, the silence broke first. At 16 a.m., dogs across town began to howl, not barking, not growling, but long panicked cries that raised every sleeping hair on human skin. People would later swear the sound came from every direction at once, as if the ground itself were warning them. Then the power died, not gradually, not flickering. Every light cut out in the same instant. Refrigerators stopped humming. Ceiling fans froze mid-spin. The town plunged into darkness so complete it felt unnatural, as though the stars themselves had dimmed. Daniel Carter noticed it from the road. He was driving home from the repair shop, grease still under his fingernails, radio murmuring late-night static. His headlights vanished. The dashboard went black. The engine coughed once and died. The truck rolled to a stop on the shoulder of the highway. Daniel muttered a curse and reached for his phone. No signal. That was when the hum began. It wasn't loud at first, more like pressure than sound, a vibration felt in the chest rather than heard by the ears. The air shimmered above the asphalt, bending light like heat on a summer road. Daniel stepped out of the truck, squinting upward. Above him, the clouds were moving wrong. They weren't drifting, they were parting. A circular gap opened in the overcast sky, perfectly smooth, edges glowing faintly blue. The hum deepened, resonating through bone and teeth. Windows rattled miles away. People woke gasping, clutching their chests. Porch lights snapped on instinctively, then failed. Doors opened. Pajama-clad neighbors stepped outside, pointing upward as the sky itself seemed to peel back. Phones were raised, even as screens glitched and stuttered. Then the light descended. It wasn't a beam like in movies. It had depth, weight, texture. A column of pale blue illumination poured down from the opening, thick enough to look solid. Dust and insects froze within it, suspended as if caught in amber. Daniel took a step back. "What the hell?" he whispered. The light touched the ground around him, forming a perfect circle. The air inside it looked denser, slower. Daniel raised his hands to shield his eyes, panic finally taking hold. He turned and ran. He made it 3 steps. The light wrapped around him. Witnesses would later say it moved like water learning how to be solid, flowing, curling, then tightening. Daniel's boots left the asphalt as his body lifted inches, then feet, then meters into the air. He screamed. The sound cut off abruptly as if swallowed. Across town, a hunter fired a rifle into the beam. The bullet slowed mid-flight, flattened, then dissolved into fine silver dust that rained harmlessly to the ground. People dropped to their knees. Someone prayed. Someone fainted. Cameras kept recording until they didn't. Security footage later recovered showed timestamp distortion, frames missing, and angles that shouldn't have existed. One frame captured Daniel's face as he rose, mouth open, eyes wide with terror. Another showed something behind the light. Not a craft. A shape, too large to see all at once. The hum intensified. The beam narrowed. Daniel's body rotated slowly, arms reaching down toward the world he was leaving behind. Then silence. The light snapped off like a switch. The clouds sealed shut. Gravity returned with a violent thud. Daniel's truck crashed back onto the road, airbags deploying as if responding late to reality. Everything restarted at once. Power surged. Radios blared. Dogs stopped howling mid-cry. People stood frozen, staring at an empty stretch of highway. Daniel Carter was gone. Sirens arrived within minutes. Police cordoned off the road. State troopers followed. Then unmarked black vehicles with no insignia and men who didn't answer questions. By sunrise, Pine Ridge was swarming with officials. But the damage was already done. 43 witnesses. dozens of partial recordings. A weather station log showing a radiation spike that didn't match lightning, aircraft, or solar activity. Radar anomalies that appeared and vanished faster than physics allowed. For the first time in history, an alien abduction wasn't whispered. It was documented, and the sky above Pine Ridge looked the same as it always had. Empty, quiet, and waiting. 4 days later, Daniel Carter returned. It was exactly the same stretch of highway, and he appeared as though placed there deliberately. No bruises, no cuts beyond minor scratches from the crash. His clothes were the same as the night he vanished, greasy sleeves rolled up, worn jeans. But there was something different in his posture, something almost measured. He didn't run. He didn't stumble. He didn't cry. He just stood barefoot in the middle of the asphalt, arms at his sides, looking upward at the empty sky. A passing truck swerved to avoid him. The driver slammed on the brakes and shouted. Daniel blinked at him, calm, unafraid. There was a precision in his gaze that no human possessed, his eyes tracking movement almost like cameras, calculating every detail. His breathing was slow, controlled. It unnerved the onlookers, who had expected a terrified, broken man. Paramedics arrived first, then police, then the local hospital. By the time state and federal authorities descended, Daniel was already being questioned. Doctors ran blood tests, checked vitals, scanned him for trauma. Nothing. No drugs, no injuries, no neurological abnormalities. The strange thing was that Daniel remembered everything. At first, he hesitated. Words stumbled from his lips as he tried to describe the impossible. He spoke of a structure, colossal, glowing, and curving in ways that made no sense geometrically. The walls seemed to bend both inward and outward simultaneously, the ceiling floating above in a way that defied gravity. The beings inside didn't speak, at least not with mouths or words. They communicated by thought, adjusting his perceptions when he misunderstood them. "They weren't trying to hurt me," he said, voice steady. "They just wanted to see if I could understand, if I could remember." Skeptics laughed. Journalists sniffed disbelief. Psychologists wrote reports citing hallucinations or post-traumatic stress. But Daniel's second revelation silenced every doubt. He began to draw. On scraps of paper, napkins, even blank walls, he sketched symbols and devices no human had ever seen. Star maps appeared, complete with accurate gravitational lensing and coordinates to galaxies that were undiscovered. Mathematical structures formed organically on the page, impossible to calculate without knowledge far beyond Earth's physics. Material science flowed from his hands as if he had been taught the secrets of creation itself. Astrophysicists who studied his drawings were stunned. The maps depicted star systems down to precise planetary orbits. Some of the objects he sketched weren't visible yet, even with the most advanced telescopes on Earth. They were predicted, based on patterns only the aliens could have known. But the most convincing proof came from inside his own head. Doctors eventually convinced him to undergo an MRI, simply to check for anomalies. What they found baffled everyone in the room. Behind his left ear, embedded just under the skull, was a small object smaller than a grain of rice. It was smooth, featureless, and seemed organic yet artificial. It emitted no heat, no radiation, no electrical signal they could measure, yet the machine detected it. It moved slightly, almost responding to questions. Daniel smiled faintly. "It's recording," he said, "showing them, showing us." When attempts were made to remove the object, it projected a stable, three-dimensional holographic field above the scanner. The projection displayed the events of his abduction in full detail, including angles no human could have captured. the interior of the craft, the beings themselves, the galaxy as seen from orbit. The field even displayed the highway below Pine Ridge during the initial incident, including all the witnesses frozen in time. The scientists, government officials, and military personnel present were shaken into silence. Cameras were confiscated. Notes were shredded. Every recording was classified. Even the footage taken by civilians mysteriously vanished or became corrupted when authorities intervened. Yet Daniel remained calm, precise. And then he said the line that would haunt everyone in that room. "They're not studying us anymore. They already finished that. They were checking if we remembered." The implication was terrifying. The aliens weren't here to experiment on humans as they had done with primitive or failing species. They had already catalogued the knowledge, reactions, and memories out of Earth's people. They were waiting, watching, ensuring that humanity could remember correctly, or perhaps even remember at all. When Daniel finally left the facility under government custody, he vanished again. This time, there were no witnesses, no lights, no column of glowing energy, just silence. But the evidence he left behind would never be forgotten. The drawings, the MRI scans, the eyewitness accounts, they all confirmed one undeniable truth. The most convincing alien abduction in human history had happened, and Daniel Carter was the proof. And somewhere above Earth, beyond clouds and radar, something watched and waited.